Hi, Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst. Welcome to the Deep End Dynasty style tonight. Busy night. Alvin Kamara conjecture is in the air. Will he be suspended? Rob Gronkowski, we think retired. What do you do with him and Kamara in Dynasty? We'll talk running back tiers. And there's one player who I really want to he was not on the schedule tonight, but Adam made a Chiron. We wrote it out. It'll be official. I want to figure out like where we're supposed to be at on him. So hopefully Dynasty players get some value out of tonight. That's the idea, right, Adam?
That's right.
That's what we're going for. So let's get started. Here comes some Sharks. Welcome to the Deep End. You watch on YouTube, you see Sharks, you're like, You listen on Spotify, I think that sounds like Sharks. So I feel like it's the same effect.
For sure. Right? Absolutely.
Good. All right. Just in tonight, there is a Pro Football Talk report that Alvin Kamara could face a 6-game suspension. A couple of things here to set Adam up for his analysis. There's always been the possibility of a Kamara suspension. Hopefully those of you who've been drafting through the offseason, Dynasty or not, have been sort of cognizant of that possibility. Drew Davenport, who is the first guy I look to when it comes to football players in legal trouble, Deshaun Watson, etc., says nothing has changed here. That's a tweet from like 2 minutes ago that I saw, maybe 15 minutes ago in real time. I'm not sure anything is different here. In terms of Dynasty, what I would do is read Drew Davenport and then feel out your league, because as has been the case, I think, Adam, there could be some, Kamara is a little bit soft, like you see in the drafts we do. He has a new quarterback, a new coach. There's a lot of sort of negatives on Kamara, including this.
Yeah, I'm wondering who is suspending him. Is it the league? Is it the team? I always wonder if it's the team, are they just trying to get out in front of it so that they can, get the suspension out of the way? But I certainly trust Drew Davenport. I love following him on Twitter. Because he's a fantasy football player, so he's got skin in the game, so he cares about this stuff just as much as we do. And obviously he's that's his world. This is the law. So yeah, if he says nothing's changed, then I will trust him. But again, it's be a little weary here. What are we looking at? Mark Ingram, Divina Zigbo, like what are we like? What's
Abram
the backup?
Abram Smith.
There we go. I would venture to guess if he did miss 6 games, especially if they know now, that they would just go ahead and maybe make a cheap trade for something or something of that nature. I don't think they would go in with Mark Ingram, a 32-year-old running back, but maybe they would. Who knows? So,
well, Adam, David Johnson was there. That was a few weeks ago. David Johnson visited. You have David Johnson. You have Devontae Booker. I mean, this is the way it's moving. Older running backs sort of get stuck. I mean, we have rookies, an influx of rookies this year. You have star running backs who've gotten their next contract, that are established and entrenched, including Kamara. And some of those guys get washed out, but there are injuries, which is good for them. And there are situations like this. So in terms of what you do with your team, you just stay on the news, which anybody watching our show is already doing. In terms of Dynasty, what is Kamara? He's tough to sell if you're talking about a suspension and all those other negatives. What do you think about buying Kamara? Like, I think I could get talked into that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know people always want to get that edge and buy the dip. I'm a big buy the dip guy, but he's almost 27. He's going to play without Sean Payton, Winston. His stock. I mean, if he gets suspended, his stock will never be lower. I might almost wait for the suspension, unless you think he's not going to get the suspension and you're trying to buy that. But I would almost, wait for the suspension and buy him at the absolute rock bottom, especially because then you'll know like if we're talking Dynasty, you already know what your team looks like. Hey, I can afford to wait out 6 weeks of him and I'll get him for absolutely nothing. So I might wait for this suspension unless you think you can get him for the same amount now. But if but then Drew Davenport says there might not be one. So I would wait it out unless you got someone shopping him. I certainly wouldn't be shopping him because you're not going to get a lot for him right now. Right. So for me, it's a hold. For me, it's a hold unless someone's really trying to give him away.
Yeah, and I think those guys are out there. I would be looking into the Kamara manager or owner right now because the negativity has been kind of persistent. You see in these drafts we're doing where he goes mid-third round, like people are expecting, everything. Right at him, everything. You just laid it out. Age, team, this, it's a little bit going the wrong way on him. But look, running backs in Dynasty, it's pretty cut and dried. Like if you can win, then you have to sort of suck it up and go for those older guys. And there are 6 or 8 of them that are good RB1 caliber starting players who are on the older side that if you're not a good team in Dynasty, you don't want them. You don't want Zeke Elliott on your team in that situation. You don't want Derrick Henry. You don't want Dalvin Cook. You don't want Kamara. You don't even want James Conner. Like you want to be out on all those guys, and they all have value to the team that can win. Yes, it's only June, and there'll be other developments. But man, if you have a team like there's one team I have that I'm thinking of where somebody realized this is like 2 months ago that they were just not going to be good. So they just put Kamara up and a few other guys like that. And in terms of running back, you just have to do it. I think, what are we here for? You want to win money. And You have enough teams in many of these dynasty leagues who are just trying to build something. I'm 50. Let's go. I want to win some money. Give me Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook and those guys, Aaron Jones. If I have a good team at all, they could be cheap right now.
That's right. I'm a man. I'm 50. That's right.
I'm 50. I need some more helmets.
That's funny. My son, he was asking me about a player today. I forget who it was. I'm like, no, he's like, you don't want him, dude. He's old. We're talking about fantasy. It's like, Dad, he's 33. I'm like, that's old, bro. You don't want anyone in the NFL that's 33 unless it's a quarterback, But it's funny. But no, I get it, and we're going to talk about the running back tiers here coming up. But it was funny. We talked last night. About a football guy's draft that I did redraft in the 3rd round. I passed on Kamara for Javonte Williams, and now I'm feeling a little bit better about that pick. But I do have a lot of Kamara leading up to this, so cross my fingers he can kind of outlive that suspension this year and roll it over into next year when he's a little bit older. So, but no, I completely agree with your running back point. Like, yeah, you should be, young receivers. Then you get those middle-aged running backs at 25, and you can just roll those over every year. They're fairly cheap in trades, and running backs are easier to replace in the rookie draft than receivers are. So if you have an old running back that ages out, you just, if you have a 1st-round pick or you've planned ahead properly, now you've got a 1st-round pick or 2, you can go get yourself a Breece Hall or something like that, or a DeAndre Swift, 2 years ago, to now be on your squad for the next six years.
I say go find out about Alvin Kamara. It's also a team where targets are not easy to figure out. Kamara, if he's healthy and not suspended, even with a new coach and quarterback, could get tons of targets on that team. Is Michael Thomas interested in playing football ever again? After him, it's Olave, and then it's who knows. So I think there might be a soft spot right now on him. And the point is, we started with, Pro Football Talk shows up and somehow moves the needle, but don't take that seriously. Read what it says and then turn to people who really know stuff. Okay.
That's right.
Gronk. That was the assignment. Yes. Rob Gronkowski retired again, maybe. So same sort of concept here, Adam. If I have a good team and somebody's holding Rob Gronkowski, maybe they don't have a good team, but they were good last year or something like that. I want to find out if they would give him up, because I sort of feel like you have to respect the possibility that he plays, and not necessarily will everyone in your league do that. So worth inquiring. Did you hear anybody trying to trade for him or you can't really shop him. Like, I guess you could, depending on if there's some deep dive running back receiver that you would take for him. I guess you could be shopping him, right?
Yeah, you could be shopping probably in tight end premium leagues only, or like leagues that are super super deep. You could be shopping in because I mean it's probably honestly it's probably 50-50 to me that he comes back. I don't think it's less than 50-50 he comes back this year. Because why at this point training camp's a month away or the season's 2 months away? Why would you retire now? You would have done it 2 months ago, and so I think he's out this year, but maybe next year he comes back. Maybe if Brady goes to, Miami and he goes to Miami or whatever. But, and I think you would, from knowing you and the way that you kind of go about stuff, I feel like you would be the type of guy who would maybe pick up a guy like Gronk in Dynasty. I just don't know. I don't know if I would do it unless it was tight end premium. And I don't it depends on who you have. But even if he comes back next year, he's 33, 34, who do I have on my team? Even if best case scenario, it comes back, he's a Dolphin, Gesicki's out of there, Brady's in there. Am I going to start him over, any of the top 12, top 13 dynasty tight ends at that point? I'm not going to start him. I'm not going to play him, unless I can get him for absolutely free, which probably could. I'm going to keep a roster spot. I think I would just not waste my time trying. I mean, if someone wants to give me for free and I see the offer pop up on email, okay. But I don't think I'm going to waste my time shopping for Gronk. I would spend more time shopping for Kamara.
Okay. Well, remember the history on Gronkowski. I mean, he's a different age, but March of 19, he retired from New England. Then he sat out a year. And I bet, I mean, we don't have Jimmy Kimmel's audience, but I bet there's one person watching or listening that had Gronkowski 3 years ago and either held him through that next season. You have to have the right roster depth and the right format where you can afford to do that, or the right, quality team to be able to do that, or just sort of regretted letting him go, because once he showed up in Tampa, he was elite. And Brady just did it. If something like that happens here, that's sort of the nervousness you feel about Gronkowski, is that he could change his mind, or the whole thing could have been an act. I mean, that's sort of his style. And he comes back, and the whole time we've been drafting him and all this stuff, the reason was once like it was a given, it wasn't a given. Once he signs to play, he's like top 6. So it's great if you, even late into the season, depends on, what you can afford to do with your roster. But I wouldn't give up. That's all. Bottom line.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think even last year he finished, I'm looking, I think in tight end premium, he finished 12th in scoring, and he was, Total. Yeah. No, at a tight ends.
Per game, not per game, right? For total.
I don't have the per game in front of me. I just have the total.
Per game would be better. I mean, he got hurt at the Rams, and he missed a chunk of games after that. But
okay,
whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, right. So I mean, yeah, he did miss a chunk of games in the middle of the season. There missed 2, 4, 6 games. So yeah, no, his per game were good. 33 points, 21 points, 22, 23. Yeah, no, it's and everyone's going to hold, because everyone, especially in Dynasty, guys love to have that. I don't know what the better term for it is, but I'm smarter than you. I'm going to hold on to this guy and laugh when he comes back in 2 years, which is fine. I'm sure I have him on a Dynasty roster somewhere, so I'll go find him and see how that team looks. And in tight end premium leagues, I certainly won't be cutting him off the bat. That's for sure.
Right. Don't do that. That's an easy one. That's right.
Don't do that.
We'll get to running backs, but I want to talk about happens to be a tight end, but a player that I need help figuring out, and that is TJ Hockenson of Detroit. So ADP, it's obviously Kelsey and Andrews. Then it's Pitts kind of on his own. This is less dynasty than it is sort of redraft world, underdog, FBG, etc. Then Waller and Kittle are fairly close. And then, I see Dalton Schultz go ahead of Hockenson. Look, Hockenson is a first-round pick 4 years ago. He's good, or maybe he's not amazing, but he's good. Tight ends get better, and everybody likes what Detroit is into with what St. Brown was when Hockenson was hurt, with what Swift could be, DJ Chark, Jameson Williams. maybe they play and cut into Hockenson, but Hockenson is healthy. Which is more likely, that when you draft TJ Hockenson in round 6 or at least 7, that you're going to regret that, or that it's going to be a steal? Because I still think there's a nice player here. Maybe we get spoiled with the likes of Kelsey or even Andrews, who's no different in age, right? I mean, Andrews is young too, where we feel like there's a standard that's being set where they're just going to be amazing and you have to rearrange your plans and your draft to come up with them. I don't know. I mean, Hockenson, draft capital, original team. Everybody likes the Lions a little bit. They're not in the AFC West. I mean, that's a problem, because if they were in the AFC West and playing those teams all the time, I don't think that's the reason, though, that I think people are soft on him.
Yeah, I think people, I think he kind of let people down last year, kind of like in theory, because people like I was big on Hawk last year. I was taking him as like tight end 5, right? Tight end 4, tight end 5. He finished tight end 11 and he missed 6 games. Tight end 11 on total for fantasy points.
Total, right.
Total fantasy points, and he missed 6 games. And the problem is the weeks, the way he missed them and the weeks he missed, he missed the fantasy playoffs, which is brutal when you're counting on him all year.
Good point.
So whenever you end the season missing games, it always affects it. But he was around tight end 4 or 5 before he got hurt. And so he didn't take that big leap, but he's not. My big thing on him last year was there was nobody else there to throw the football to going into the year. Amon-Ra, St. Brown kind of emerged in the second half of the year, but it was like, how do they not throw him the ball on every single play? And when they did, he looked great. He had some great corner routes in the back of the end zone, making touchdown catches. I know I was really locked into him last year, but it was interesting. They would, with the coach being a former tight end, you think that they would lock into him more. I think at Thanksgiving, I think he only had like 3 targets and he had, a touchdown or 2. He had a couple of really big plays. That's neither here nor there. He's still young. He's like you said, he was a first round pick out of Iowa. A lot of great tight ends came out of there. He's only 25. He's young. He's the outside of Kyle Pitts. He's the next youngest tight end of like the top 8 dynasty to tight ends. So he's still, like you said, tight ends usually take 3 years, 2, 3, 4 years to develop. He's already been a top 5 tight end before last year, and he was a top 5 in points per game last year. So I think he's fine. Dynasty, I think he would be a target for me. Redraft, I know we're not doing a redraft show today, but I tend to go with the elite tight ends early, and then kind of go to the other tight ends later. And kind of skip over that tier, but I like Hockenson in Dynasty for sure.
Maybe there's an argument that drafting him, if you go by the tight end hierarchy, if you're drafting him at 6 or even 7, like, where is he likely to finish? What's the best case scenario in terms of tight ends? We know with tight ends, though, you're doing that within what kind of build you want with your draft. Again, not so much in Dynasty, I'm sorry, but where do I want my tight end, and then stacking and everything else. But man, like, I guess there is that argument. Is he going to finish? Is there a scenario where he finishes in the top 3? Maybe there isn't, but I think there's a player there. And in Dynasty, I mean, he could have 7, 8 good years ahead of him, whether he's on the Lions or not. You mentioned Thanksgiving from last year, 3 for 35 and 1.
Okay.
I remember the year before, I was like right here where I'm sitting now in a TV right here. They were playing Houston. And I just looked at the numbers. I was 1 yard off. He was 5 for 89. Like, not the first drive, but first half of the first quarter. Hockenson was 5 for 89 against Deshaun Watson's Houston team. J.J. Watt might have had a pick 6 in this game. Houston won. But Hockenson started like, okay, this is going to be the day of days. Then he got hurt and went away. He left the game, and that was it, 5 for 89. But man, there is some kind of a good ceiling with Hockenson. I just feel like the vibes, when you start to talk about Dalton Schultz being above Hockenson or not because of his touchdowns, just stop. I mean, this is a better player than those guys, I think, by a lot.
Yeah.
And if you like the Lions, it's not on the Bears. If he's on the Bears or one of these teams everybody's mad at, okay, but he's not. The Lions are very trendy. Anyway, Dynasty show, right? Dynasty, trade TJ Hockenson to me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, the players going around him, Dallas. I would take Hockenson over Goddard. I would take him over Kelsey. He's 8 years younger. I would take him over Waller. He's 4 years younger than Waller. I take him over Schultz. He's younger and better than Schultz. So yeah, I mean, he might.
Tight end 3 in Dynasty. Then is that where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, for me, for sure. I mean, yes, I like him way better in Dynasty than I do in redraft, just because of the way that I generally go. Either the locked in elite ones, or the kind of go volume, take a couple ones a little later on. But in Dynasty, give me Hockenson for sure.
Then in trades, a little bit tricky. Like the first question of trades is, how good am I? And then can I find a fit with somebody who's thinking the opposite? And I don't know, like what rebuilding team? No rebuilding team is going to want to move on from Hockenson. But if there's if you have Kelsey and can trade Hockenson straight up 1-for-1, because the other guy's trying to win, but you're sort of like sharp and maybe get a draft pick too. I don't know. Send us your Hockenson trade questions, because I want to answer a couple of those at Deep End FF1.
Yeah, I would definitely take the Hockenson end of that Kelsey deal for sure. But yeah,
if Kelsey were a little bit younger and a little bit less of the shine were off him, then that's easier. But they did trade Tyreek Hill, and maybe that's what could be done.
Yes.
RB Tiers.
Oh, like it. So last week we did quarterbacks. I think we had a really good discussion about the quarterback dynasty tiers. This week we decided to go with running back, kind of go in order there. And so we'll pull up the Draft Sharks dynasty rankings here. And these are the tight ends. I was just looking at those. There's our running backs. So so going into these dynasty drafts, I with running back, I just tend to lean youth. Like, give me the guy that's not been beaten down for 4 or 5 years in the NFL. And so the cool thing about these Draft Sharks rankings is it's done based on 1, 3, 5, and 10-year projected outputs based on age and profile projection, historical trends, and stuff like that. So that's how they kind of get the rankings. And you can search it by 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, or whatever. So kind of if you're in it for the long game, you can search it by 5 year. I don't know, 10 years probably only necessary for quarterbacks or something. But yeah. So to me, the tight end one for sure in Dynasty is Jonathan Taylor.
Running back, yeah.
I guess we should start there. Do you disagree?
No, Taylor's both. I mean, he's elite production and young. He's young enough to qualify. And I think with now I said it, with running backs, there's two things. I mean, it's how good is your team, and then you have to be willing to compromise and move to those older guys that some players in your league are going to be excited to get rid of. Like, they're not going to want Derrick Henry. I mean, Eckler, McCaffrey, there's 7 or 8 of those guys that are like valuable, but they're on the older side. Then if I'm not good, give me every younger running back with any juice at all. Hall, obviously, but Kenneth Walker, give me those guys. Michael Carter, even, on the same team. Harris, of course, Javonte. He runs into people, but, we're definitely going to respect his value. I think overall you have 2 camps here in Dynasty, with the exception of Taylor and maybe a Barkley, who, if he's able to put up a season and not get hurt, he sort of serves both masters, where he's young enough, not super young, but young enough to rate in a dynasty as sort of a longer term view, but then also productive in the right now. You have the point in time we're at in terms of running back is there are a lot of guys right now that have value. They're going early in redraft, but maybe they're out of the league in 2 years, right? I mean, there really is see the whole board. I mean, you have a cluster of guys that are like that right now, and depending on how you fit into your league, they might be tradable or somebody you can get.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. Jonathan Taylor, my only concern with a guy like JT is he took a pounding in college. Like he had a lot of touches, a lot of carries in college too. So that's the only thing that might, I know we don't like to think about that a lot either, but that's the only thing that might make me worrisome about it. But I still think he's definitely the RB1 there. And that's kind of a tier of its own. I you know me, I love Christian McCaffrey, but he 26 years old, smaller kind of frame. Same Austin Eckler here. They have him ranked 6th. Draft Sharks. Again, smallish frame, 27 years old. I'm about the youth. I'm about how many years can I get out of these guys? So I like the Najee Harrises. I like the Javonte Williams. I like the Breece Halls. Even Saquon Barkley. I know he's been banged up, but he's got that body type, and he's got he's still only 25. You know, he's even younger than, you know, he's younger than Eckler by 2 years. You know, so those are the kind of guys that I'm looking to draft early in, and DeAndre Swift too. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave him out. I really like DeAndre Swift in Dynasty.
2-part question.
Yes.
Are we in a league where you have McCaffrey and I have Najee Harris and we can flip them? And if not, can we start one tonight? Can we just start a Dynasty League tonight where Najee Harris, who is less than 2 years younger than McCaffrey, and McCaffrey has had kind of the last 2 years off.
Isn't that interesting? So I kind of been using the same thing for Barkley. Like, they haven't been getting banged up because they've been hurt. Like, does that make sense? Like, They haven't been taking that physical beating, the touches, because they've been hurt. So you would take McCaffrey over Najee Harris straight up in Dynasty?
Oh my gosh, yes.
You hate Najee Harris because
no, I don't. But he's not good. Right? He's not efficient or anything. He just gets tons of volume. New quarterback situation there. He's fine, but I don't want Najee Harris. I mean, if somebody's going to give me McCaffrey, when we're done, I have Harris on a FFPC Dynasty and a couple others. I will make that offer tonight in as many places as I can to try to turn Najee Harris into McCaffrey. McCaffrey, 26.1, Harris, 24.3, and basically, what has McCaffrey done in the last 2 years of football? He's 24.3. They're both 24.3 in age. And Harris had super high volume in the first year. Come on.
That's an interesting what would that be called? Like, years lost to injury. Like, there's got to be a statistic for that, or something where we can subtract it from their actual age versus, you know, NFL age might be different. But no, I like that.
Javonte is different. Javonte is more than 2 years younger than Harris.
Right.
Same draft.
I just feel like the Steelers too. Like, if you want to look at the micro, the Steelers, they love these workhorse backs, and they generally will stick with them forever until the wheels fall off. You know, Le'Veon Bell, you know, they wanted him back there. He was kind of the head case that was kind of screwing around with the contract. You just think back to, you know, even in the days of like Jerome Bettis, like they ran him into the ground. I know he was the second team was Jerome Bettis. He was with the Rams to start, but like, I feel like once they find these workhorse backs, they just use them and use them and use them. So I kind of like that idea of having him there. I also like DeAndre Swift over McCaffrey, and I'm not saying that I would draft them in that spot, but I would trade back. That's the great thing about Dynasty Leagues. I would trade back and take DeAndre Swift. That we were talking about the Dynasty League I just did recently, the 750 RotoViz Triflex over FFPC, and I basically went hero RB, and I took DeAndre Swift, and like nothing else after that. So I really like Swift in Dynasty.
While you were talking, I made an offer in an FFPC $77 Dynasty League, Najee Harris for Christian McCaffrey.
Let's see what happens.
Live
on the show. That's fantastic.
In that league, usually it takes 3 days for anybody to respond, best case. But maybe the person thinks it's a snap call. Maybe the person is watching and hoping that we're in the same league. You never know. All right, 11 through 20.
Yeah.
ETN. There's so much steam on ETN lately. 23. Everybody likes him after the injury. Who do you like on that team? I have two guys on Jacksonville who interest me in terms of fantasy value outside of the quarterback, which is even a little bit strained in itself. ETN and Ingram. All right, maybe I mentioned that last night, but ETN at 11. Ooh, that's an opportunity.
Yeah, and again, these are Draft Sharks rankings. These necessarily aren't ADP.
Oh, right. That makes
yeah.
better.
Yes, yeah. No, I like. I'm coming around on ETN. Like again, to me, man, age is king to me for running backs because it's like ETN. He's 2 years younger than a little over 2 years younger than Mixon, 3 years younger than Kamara. 2 years younger than Barkley. We didn't really mention Breece Hall. If I scroll up just a little bit, Breece Hall, the fact that he's 21 is just sensational. I really like Breece Hall too. That's the route I would go. I like Hall and DeAndre Swift kind of as the two guys to target there. But yes, no, ETN. I think he's a buy right now. People are kind of waiting to see it, and once it happens, he's going to skyrocket. The one guy I don't like in this 11 to 20 range. I mean, obviously age is a factor. You get the air. Eventually, it becomes like, okay, well, eventually I need to take somebody that's got talent. We traded up in the FFWC to get Aaron Jones at a certain point because we're like, hey, eventually it makes sense. The value's there. But a guy I don't really like in this range is probably Cam Akers for Dynasty. I like him better in redraft because although he is 23, like I don't even know if he's any good. Like I feel like Dobbins is good, same age. I feel like ETN is good, same age. Gibson is exactly 1 year older, so with not a lot of touches. He played receiver in college, really. So he doesn't have a lot of touches on his body. So, eventually you got to say, okay, is this guy good? What's the situation like? But Akers would be the guy that I'm kind of out on in this range.
Yeah, me too. I like Henderson in redraft, but I don't love Henderson. Like it's a tough one. Like the Rams are such a great team to have the running back from.
I know.
And they want to throw the ball a ton too. I mean, Stafford, the player he is, and adding Allen Robinson. So I think the position is a little bit minimized, but I'm the same as you on Akers. Like, okay, is he great? I don't know. Does that matter? They figure out that. And an Achilles injury. I mean, so much is talked about with how the playoffs went, and I don't really care. You're playing better teams, and I don't think he was really necessarily much different. I mean, it was still an Achilles injury. If he was a little bit different, that makes sense. But I'm just not in love with the whole profile in the first place. And so in terms of Dynasty, what do you do? I'm not trying to trade for him myself, and neither are you, it seems. If I had him, there's another one. Maybe somebody comes to you. It's not really the right time for it, I think. I mean, there's a little bit of there are doubts about Akers, but maybe if the Rams start well and he has a couple of good games, then you might be able to turn him into somebody you like more.
I mean, even as a rookie, he couldn't even beat out, like, Henderson was there still, but who was the veteran there that isn't good? Was it? No, it wasn't Tolbert. There was some vet. It wasn't Mike Davis either. There was some veteran running back that was there 2 years ago when he was a rookie that he couldn't even beat out for carries there. So
the 20 Rams, you mean? The 20 Rams?
Yeah. But
they played in Buffalo.
Yeah. So I just think that Akers just doesn't really have the talent there. And then
Malcolm Brown?
Yes. Yeah. Even Brown was getting touches over him in certain, all year, so, or with him or concurrently, it was just, he couldn't break free from those two guys. And so now it's 2 years later and he's coming off an Achilles. Like, I don't see it as far as like him being a guy. We just don't know if he's good or not. In redraft, if he's not good, it's 1 year, whatever. But when you tie yourself to him in Dynasty, it's a much, much different.
I want to stick up for Gibson quickly. Like, okay. It's all negative on Gibson, isn't it? It's all like, oh, but they got McKissick. Oh, but Brian Robinson, even Patterson. Oh, but the coaches. Like, it's all negative on Gibson. Still like the player. Still like the age. I think maybe in some of these leagues, people are going to give him away. Maybe you could, depending on the state of your team, trade a receiver for him and just have the depth and give yourself the chance of scoring on Gibson, because I think there's still a lot to like, and the noise is loud and very negative on him.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted Brian Robinson, but I think he's just a plotter. Gibson could be electric. Even I wish they would trade him. I mean, that stuff never happens. But Gibson could be electric on another team. And the problem is with a lot of these running backs, by the time they get on another team, they're like already banged up and old, and you don't really get to see what they could have been. But yeah, and then after that. After Gibson, I think you start to get into these running backs that you were talking about. Like eventually, you gotta take them because they're good and they're established, and your team needs to win. And I think that's Aaron Jones, that's Leonard Fournette, that's James Conner, Zeke, exactly, Derrick Henry. So eventually, like, all right, listen, I need somebody for a year. Isn't it funny that Zeke is still younger than like James Conner? Isn't that like it's funny to think about, because Zeke's been around. Zeke's been doing it since day one. But and then I almost feel like Leonard Fournette's 30 already. But but yeah. So who do you like in this kind of 20 to 28 range?
Well, Edwards-Helaire has been one of my favorite picks so far this year, and in Dynasty, same kind of thinking as we're talking about. I'm sure if you're in 5 Dynasty leagues, in 2 of them, I would say the person who has Edwards-Helaire isn't happy.
Right.
And so figure out a way to get there. I think very young, the perfect offense. Okay, Ronald Jones, but you can't throw the ball to Ronald Jones. McKinnon doesn't really affect anything for me. And they lost Darrell Williams, who did a lot of that work last year. I think the Chiefs are acting like this isn't exactly the most promising way to put it, but that they still want to salvage him. And with Tyreek Hill gone, there should be more of a running back prominent team or opportunity there for CEH. So in redraft, we're talking about the 7th round or so, and I love him. I mean, I think if you can get the running back one on arguably the best offense in the league in the 7th round, wouldn't you always do that? And in terms of Dynasty, I think the principles are the same. Super young, had some injuries too, so he's not worn out or anything like that. If somebody in your league might make an argument against him that includes goal line and touchdowns, you can beat that guy, because if they care about that, then they're doing it wrong. I mean, Edwards-Helaire I'm hot for him.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. And it's interesting. Like, I want to see, Kansas City is going to revamp their offense somehow, some way. I mean, they just lost Tyreek Hill. I mean, he was such a big part and such a different type of play. Like, you can't replace that speed. They bring in Juju. They bring in MVS. They draft Sky Moore. What's going to change? Maybe they throw to the running back a little bit more. In a kind of a similar, they've got the same kind of coaching staff there. Kind of to shoot over to Buffalo real quick. They've got a new offensive coordinator there. They added OJ Howard. They've wanted this pass catching running back. That's what they've been yearning for all off season. They tried to get McKissick. They went and got Cook. They're going to do something different there in Buffalo. What is it going to be? Is it going to be throw to the running back more? What are they going to do in Kansas City? If it's passed to the running back more, that's Edwards-Helaire all day, because they brought in Ronald Jones. I'd prefer Ronald Jones take some of those between the 20s carries, those carries, those touches that we don't care about, right? We want the catches, we want the touchdowns, and if they're going to maybe put them in that more of a receiving role with a team looking for a spark, that could be big. That's just a thought that I have. I haven't heard anything like that, but that's something I'm going to be paying attention to in training camp, because absolutely 23 years old, prolific offense, looking for kind of a new identity, and maybe CEH is going to be that guy out of the backfield. He was so good at that at LSU. That's why everyone kind of loved him coming out. He was a great pass catcher, and they haven't really done that with him yet. Maybe they'll finally start to do that.
It's the deep end, so I know you'll keep scrolling. Miles Sanders is somebody that, for the same touchdown argument, I can get with. Like the offense, like the opportunity there. He is the running back one on that team for sure, at least as the season starts. And the touchdown, the fact that he didn't score at all last year for as many touches as he had stands out. So I like Sanders. In Dynasty, I think he's sort of neutral because he's a few years in. I think it's year 4 coming up for Sanders, Jacobs, Montgomery, that draft. So I'm not in a hurry to trade for him this year, but if I have him on my roster, I like it. Elijah Mitchell came up last night. I don't want to be repetitive. Tied for 4th or 5th on the betting odds to win the rushing title. And I think the dynasty, not the dynasty crowd, the fantasy crowd in general is sort of acting like they think it'll be just someone out of thin air for San Francisco because that's what always happens. But Mitchell was pretty good for them. Lance could be a rushing quarterback beast. That's true, but I still like the idea of rostering Mitchell.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. 24, surprise, he's even that old. So yeah, I mean, a team that wants to run the ball, a team that's generally good at running the ball. Elijah Mitchell, you can get him as as an RB3 in a lot of these. Guys I kind of like in this range, though. I got to be honest. So the guys we passed up on, Tony Pollard was a little bit earlier here in the rankings. Yeah. Maybe not on ADP, but also I drafted him and redrafted him in Dynasty too. Is Alexander Madison. You get guys like Pollard and Madison who, they're either the starting running backs are gonna go away, right? They're gonna drift off into oblivion because they're old and banged up. Cook and Zeke, or guys like Madison and Pollard are going to join new teams when their contract's up. After this year, I think both of them, they're going to join new teams with fresh legs. They're not banged up. They're very talented. They've been top 5 backs when they've been given the opportunity. So I like buying those guys before they sign with another team or before they become the starting running back for their current teams. I think all the way back to like Michael the Burner Turner. I don't know if you were playing fantasy football back then, but he was, I think he was LT's backup. And then he went to Atlanta, and he was great when he played. And then he went to Atlanta, and he had his first year, he absolutely smashed. He might have been a top 3 running back fantasy-wise. And that's kind of the idea behind a pick like Madison or Pollard.
Jerry Rice was in his 2nd year when I was playing fantasy football, but I took a break. So I can't disrespect the question. Rachaad White, talked about him last night on the deep end too. I feel like he might be the beneficiary of the Godwin pessimism and the Gronkowski retirement. Pass catcher, I'm not going to be afraid of that. People don't like the idea of rookies in with Brady. They have to earn it. But if he's in more of a receiver role, you have other guys too. Take a hard look at Tampa Bay. But I think I drafted White in a league this morning. And in Dynasty, I think he's fine. Hines, you do it when you have to do it.
Oh,
right?
boy.
I mean,
there's our guy way down here. Carter, Michael Carter.
He's good. No. People hate the team, and they not hate in terms of fantasy. Like it's more of a dislike because the Jets have put a lot of talent at the skill positions. But the Breece Hall pick sort of wrecked Carter as a nice sort of sneaky running back 2 or whatever that would have been. But still like the player, love the age. Running backs get hurt. I have a lot of Michael Carter.
Yeah, Carter could be one of those guys I was talking about. The problem is he's this year and maybe 2 more years away from becoming a free agent, getting loose of the Jets unless they were to trade him or something like that. So, but yeah. So, man, I wish it could have worked out. Hopefully he can carve out a role there. Isaiah Spiller, the same kind of deal. I like the running backs again, the young running backs that are behind older backs. Eckler's 27. Who were we just talking about? We were talking about somebody. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, those younger running backs that are behind those older ones. Rachaad White. Great pass catching back. You know, he's kind of the modern day back. He led the PFF receiving grade for all the running backs coming out of this year's draft class. So again, Fournette will be gone in the next year or so. I would assume he's 27. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, and then after that, it's kind of a crapshoot with all the other guys. But that's kind of where I see a lot of these tiers. You got your studs up top, your youth. You want your youth up top, and then you've got the guys that we know are good, but how much longer are they gonna be good? And then you take those. It really depends on what your team build is. And then we got the guys that we just talked about. So it just depends on how you want to build your team and what you're comfortable with.
I think you want like a sort of a bottom line on running back in Dynasty. You want as many as you can get. And do not be afraid of the older guys, because it's a certain point in time in this league where you have, again, it's 6 or 8 older running backs that somebody in your league is afraid of. They don't want them. They're too old. Oh, running backs, short shelf life, everything like that. There should be a market opportunity there at those guys. And then if you have a good team, get as many of those Hassan Haskins types as you can get. Algier and all those guys. You never know. Even sort of more backups than Algier. Guys that they're going to be on rosters. If you're in a league where, like every other league is, except for best ball, you have cuts and waivers. Some of them you're going to cut. Embrace it. Be ready for that, because everybody's going to want to do that. And there'll be probably some running back we're not talking about ever on one of these shows is going to be relevant early in the season. I wanted to look at our FFWC 1K roster. So say you're like us, you did a dynasty draft in, April, and what do? You're sitting around, there's no practices, there's not even any mini camp news anymore. Is it just sort of sitting there getting cold? Nobody put it in the fridge, it's just sort of sitting, it's like rotting there until games start. Not necessarily. Maybe when there's hype on a player or anti-hype on a player, you can start to try to find those opportunities. So I don't know when you last looked at this team that you and I drafted, but as you look at it now, do you see somebody that either could be more exciting than you thought originally, or maybe is somebody that you didn't like that much before and you could turn into someone else?
That's a good question. So I now that I haven't looked at this in a while, and I kind of like going back and putting fresh eyes on it. I like guys that I've been drafting. I think of like redraft guys I've been drafting in the later rounds of these drafts have been like Kenyon Drake and Marlon Mack, right? So I kind of like those better now, looking at it, kind of the way that it is. Sorry if you guys can hear that. My wife just got home. My kids are going nuts.
Is that your house, not mine?
That's my house. It sounds like it's right in your lap.
Like
right?
It's my house too. There's pounding up there. School ended.
That's right.
Give us a break.
School. Well, a little side note. I didn't realize my wife was going to be home now. I think she was supposed to be home an hour and a half ago, and so my kids are upstairs just watching TV. I'm praying that they didn't come running down here. But
well, she did a couple of underdog drafts in her car, I think, probably.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, so I like the look of Robbie Anderson looks better. Alan Lazard is nice to look at here, So yeah, yes. I mean, what are you thinking?
We traded for Lazard. We traded Dak Prescott.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
And Tyrion Davis-Price for Lazard and Penny
and Carr or Cousins?
And Cousins.
Yeah.
Which I was excited about. Davis-Price for me was somebody, when you're drafting and it's crossing over into draft season, somebody with a chance. It was like a last round pick almost. And when an offer came for him, I thought, well, this is a chance to sell high on Davis-Price. Now, if San Francisco decides he's the best running back on the team and he rushed for 1,500 yards, then we lose. But I do not think that's going to happen. Lazard and Penny are both sort of a little out of the older side. I don't want to put it like that. It's so different running back and receiver, but I thought they were both, plus plays for us, advantages over what we had, given the guys we were giving up. And then the trade was meant to turn Cousins into Prescott from the other side. And I thought for us, it was worth it to make that trade. Cousins and Carr are very similar, I think, perception-wise going into this year, as guys that could be both great, but on the other hand, neither one really runs the ball. So we'll see what we get. But I like this team a lot. And at running back, if you look at the depth of our running backs, or even the whole thing, you see guys that are sort of later in their careers. Maybe we can turn somebody younger or a first-round pick next year. We have that, a couple of seconds, into somebody once the season gets started that can help us. But I don't know. I think we're in good shape. You try to, I don't know, maybe it's a little too ambitious, but I try to middle it. Have a good dynasty team next 5 years, say, but also a team that can cash the first year. And I think we're kind of maybe third in this league in both respects, which is great.
Yeah, and then we can, see how the season is playing out. We can go either way. We can be buyers, we can be sellers. And also too, like you said, we got picks. We got a first-round pick next year and 2 seconds. And the thing that I like about the first is it's not ours. So we can do well, and we can still get a top first-round pick if Fantasy BSOL does not do well. Now, unfortunately, I think he's got, from what I remember, a very heavy win now team.
Yep.
So I don't think he's going to do poorly year one. If he did, that would be devastating for him, because I think his team is really built for this year. But we have, we have a first and a second and a fifth and a sixth from him, plus most all of our picks. So yeah, no, I like it. And listen, cross our fingers that we can get the job done here. We're going to lean on Kyle Pitts, baby. Let's go.
Kyle Pitts. We pushed in our chips on that guy. So, but I love that. Right. I'm fine with it. I noticed Billy taking a shot at us on the Superflex Bowl draft the other night. Like, oh, they had to have Pitts and Kittle. Listen, it could work.
That's right. Those are our guys. Come on. Those are our guys in the FFWC. Okay. If you're going to let us have these tight ends, we're going to take them.
That's right. Okay. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. At Deep End FF1. Always up for any kind of questions or comments. Right, Adam? You are too? I said I'm speaking for you, it sounds like.
Absolutely. No, I totally up for comment. Love the comments and questions, and we'll be back Tuesday, I think. Tuesday with some more. Maybe we'll do maybe we'll do a live draft or something on Underdog, or maybe FFWC if we can get one of those Superflex best ball tournament ones going Tuesday night. That'd be fun.
I'm in. All right. Follow us and find out. Thanks for watching tonight. Enjoy your weekend.
See you guys.